Weaponized Victimhood. St. John the Philosopher here. An embattled Republican president's Supreme Court nominee is on the cusp of confirmation when suddenly allegations of sexual misconduct threaten to derail the entire proceeding. No, it's not 1991, and I'm not talking about Clarence Thomas, but I might as well be since we seem to be experiencing a farcical repetition of history with Brett Kavanaugh. I'm not sure how long the dog and pony show will last this time, but right now we need to talk about how this sort of thing is emblematic of a dangerous and increasingly common phenomenon that threatens the very stability of our society. Everyone with a functioning conscience has compassion for a victim. To be the target or subject to the consequences of another person's immoral behavior is a horrible feeling. Be it betrayal by a friend, having something of yours stolen, or even some form of undeserved violence, we've all had a little bit of taste of that bitter pill in our lives.
I had you! For my brother Anakin! I loved you!
If we're honest, we've all been victimizers too. We've all done something wrong to someone else. The thought of being victimized only gets more and more horrific the further along we walk that sliding scale of immorality from the likes of slander and cheating to rape and murder. In our minds, we identify that feeling we had in our own experience and amplify it until it's beyond our ability to fathom. In addition, we rightfully feel the need for the execution of justice. Every victim was wronged by someone, and that wrongdoer needs to pay.
We spoke on the phone 2 days ago. I told you I would find you.
So along with our hearts that bleed with victims, our blood boils against victimizers. This is all a good thing. But like all emotional and ethical impulses, they can only be considered a cultural good when tempered by reason and careful consideration against an objective standard. Basically, we need to make sure that we properly identify victims and victimizers, or we risk becoming victimizers ourselves as a society. Now, with the most high-profile contemporary examples being sexual misconduct across various corners of our culture, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this specifically. The Me Too movement is one of the larger aspects of a recent turn towards rooting out the dark corners of our societal institutions where powerful people have been allowed to sexually exploit others virtually without fear of reprisal. Clergy, CEOs, and film producers, among others, have all been rightfully called out for their vile actions, and hopefully their downfall will be the catalyst for lasting cultural changes that will prevent such a cancer from returning. However, the just calls to action have in some cases devolved into high-tech mobs set out to destroy potentially innocent people, and way too many people are okay with that. Come on guys, do you want lynchings? Because this is literally how you get lynchings.
We're not safe until he's dead. He'll come stalking us at night, sent to sacrifice our children to his monstrous appetite.
He'll wreak havoc on our village if we let him wander free.
So it's time to take some action, boys. It's time to follow me.
This is why the concept of innocent until proven guilty was developed and adopted as a legal standard. Yes, invoking the phrase these days feels a bit cliche, but it's extremely relevant and meaningful. Through this principle, our society guards itself against making the wrong call and visiting punishment on those that don't deserve it. False accusations create victims. In 2003, 17-year-old Brian Banks was sentenced to several years in prison for a rape he did not commit. He didn't even have sex with the supposed victim at all. Still a minor and anything but a hardened criminal, Banks was thrown in with some of the worst characters in the California penal system for years. And when he finally got out, he had to register as a sex offender and wear an ankle monitor. His name wasn't cleared until 2012, and then only because of the audacity and stupidity of the false accuser, who contacted him because, get this, she wanted to hang out.
What's wrong, baby?
This girl destroyed the life of a young man on his way to at least a college football scholarship, if not the NFL, and managed to collect nearly $2 million in damages from the Long Beach school system. Add the taxpayers of Long Beach to the list of those impacted by her lies, I suppose. Now, don't get it twisted. While false rape allegations are horrible, they're not exactly epidemic. According to several studies, confirmed false rape allegations make up about 5% of those reported. That doesn't account for questionable cases that could also be false, but even doubling the number puts it only at 10%. Now, all that is preamble, because the destruction of people's lives due to false accusations, though tragic in and of itself, is just the canary in the coal mine to the increasingly common practice of using just the idea of victimhood as a socio-political bludgeon. Preying upon our instinctual compassion for victims and animus for victimizers, people need only cast themselves in the role of the downtrodden and point an accusatory finger at their political opponents to gain unmerited favor and influence, and put their enemies in the crosshairs of mass social media attacks and literal mob actions. This isn't theoretical. The entire Ferguson affair some years ago was built around the presentation of Michael Brown as a victim of racist law enforcement rather than as a dangerous aggressor who tried to fight a cop. We're still dealing with the consequences. Beyond the riots, violent targeting of police officers, and general uptick in racial tensions, early 21st century black folks have bought into a victim narrative for which only late 19th century black folks actually had a claim. It's simultaneously hamstrung their ambitions and alienated would-be allies against those real pockets of racism that still exist. Several victims of the Parkland shooting parlayed the collective sympathy of the nation into angry calls for stripping people of their constitutional and, dare I say, natural rights. Those who openly opposed their agenda were said to have blood on their hands and be callous about their dead friends. It was ghoulish to watch, but ideologues and politicians ate it up. It made for great sound bites, and many believed it could be turned into real political capital. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed. But we're still living in the aftermath, where victims are lionized into unimpeachable characters that you dare not question or disagree with, lest you re-victimize them all over again. We know victimhood doesn't make a person perfectly knowledgeable and perfectly wise, but that hasn't stopped certain segments of culture from pushing that idea. Worse yet, this growing tendency to foist victims onto godlike pedestals incentivizes people to exaggerate or downright manufacture their own victim status, because there's power to be had.
She said that a group of 3 men wrote the initials KKK and a racial slur on the hood of her car. 20-year-old Louisiana woman who claimed to have been attacked and set on fire by 3 men. Police just announced that the story was fabricated and that the burns were self-inflicted.
Not the empowerment to seek justice, but the political power of ideological tyrants. This trend has gotten to the point that the mere claim to victimhood is enough for this false power to be bestowed, and questioning that status is itself classified as a new type of violence. This is where the danger is the greatest, because it creates a system where it is impossible to get to the truth. Without truth, we're lost.
Come at me with all these legal excuses about the system, about how the truth doesn't matter. The truth matters!
Brian Banks had a great life ahead of him that was utterly destroyed for want of the truth, because of the testimony of a fake victim whose word was not questioned. Yes, we need to be compassionate towards victims. Yes, we need to seek justice for them. But the only way to do that and prevent the type of injustice that sank Brian Banks' college dreams is to seek truth. Truth is the solid foundation upon which all order must be grounded. Government, the legal system, the culture, all of it. Fight for truth, regardless of the forces that may come against you. Everything rides on it, and it's all we've got. Tell me what you think of this video. What do you think about how people have weaponized their victimhood? How do you think we can best fight for truth? Discuss in the comments. In the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more videos on religion, culture, and politics. That's all for today. This is St. John the Philosopher. Goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you in another video.